Mr. Gregg Clunis, founder, Kojo United States. His topic is Agents Enter the Chat, the Rise of AI and the Future of Social Media Marketing. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Gregg Lucas.
All right. Hello. Good morning, evening, afternoon. First off, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you to the previous speakers, future speakers, participants. Always appreciate the opportunity to show up with other leaders in the space and just share the way that we approach things. So my talk is about social media. It's very directly focused on where the landscape is going. And to do that, we're going to need to look a little bit at where it started. So let me just get my presentation pulled up here and just let me know when you can see everything. That's not what I'm trying to do. There we go. All right, are we good? Yes. Okay, great. Okay, cool. So agents enter the chat. The interesting thing about social media and how it interacts with AI is up to this point, there's been kind of a loose association. So we have started to see with the rise of AI agents, the ability for much of what is required to do a successful social media strategy to start being looked at and touched and interacted with by AI. Not fully replaced yet, but clearly that is the direction it's going in. And this is a recent change. This is possible just in the last year and a half-ish. But as I said, we need to sort of take a step back and look at where we started in order to understand where we are going. And the first big thing I want to put on your radar is this image of a social media team sitting down together, going through the data, figuring out what the strategy should look like. In 5 years, this is going to feel like a silly waste of time. Like it's going to feel like the kind of thing that future generations look back on and say, I can't believe they spent their time doing that. Now, that isn't to say that creativity goes away, and that isn't to say that collaboration goes away. What it really means is that when we start to look at where AI will add the most value to our social media organizations and marketing in general, this is the part that it's going to impact the most: the planning, the strategy, the data, the research. Now, before we jump all the way back to 2008 and talk about how we got here, just a quick primer on who I am. My name is Gregg Clunis. I'm based in New York City. I'm the founder and CEO at Kojo. We are a creative studio that helps brands make content that better speaks to their consumers' passions. So think fans of gaming, anime, different collectibles, fandom communities. I'm also the co-founder and CEO at a company called Superdope AI. Now, what we're doing at Superdope is building AI agents that help brands do effectively what I'm going to be arguing in this presentation, which is figure out how they incorporate AI into their social media day to day. Now, as I said, we need to jump back in time here. So back in 2008, social media was known as social networking. So this was kind of the end of the MySpace era, if everyone remembers that, beginning of Facebook sort of dominating everything. And it was heavily focused on who your friends are. This was, I believe, 2 years after the news feed launched. So the idea of sort of seeing updates had just become relevant and become a part of our day-to-day internet usage. And most of what you did there was talk to your friends. You would send them pokes. You would update your status about something. And the people who would see it would be the people you chose to add. This was the original era. And because it was so community focused, that's why a lot of us gravitated towards it. It was a way to keep in touch with family members who lived across the world. It was a way to share photos from last night's event without necessarily needing to text it to each person. However, over the years, around 2014-ish, when platforms like Instagram started to become popular, it became less about the networking component and became more about the media component. So it was still social. It was still very much your friends, but instead of sharing updates and photos with each other, now it was, what are you and your friends watching? What are you and your friends engaging with? What are you and your friends sharing with each other? The media became more of the focus over the social side of it. And that era ran from 2014 to 2020. This is often known as the Instagram influencer era. This is when brands really started to enter the social landscape and position themselves as connecting with their different communities through these different mediums. This is when we started to see ad dollars move away from traditional television to platforms like Instagram, to the earliest Instagram influencers and YouTube creators. And this is when we started to really define what the third era, which we're sort of finishing up now, was going to look like. Because during this 6-year window from 2014 to 2020, we saw that emphasis on media start to push even further towards the media. We actually started to notice that the social didn't really matter as much. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of these platforms were reducing your organic reach, and they were putting more emphasis on the content that was created, but they're also putting more emphasis on paid and making it so that you weren't really able to reach the audiences you were looking for without having some dollars put behind things. So then we get to 2020. And 2020 was an interesting year for a number of reasons. But as it relates to social media, so COVID actually had an impact on social media. It's kind of strange to think about, but during the period in 2020 when things were locked down, more people were spending time at home, we also had the rise of TikTok. And these two events happened perfectly in unison. And what it gave rise to was more and more of what I call the bedroom creator. So these are the people who, during this window, they were at home, they were maybe furloughed at work, and they would just set up a camera and they would record something. Some of that was a silly dance, which I think a lot of us know TikTok for. Some of it was talking head stuff. Some of it was actually quite interesting, different graphic works and cinematography and short films and vertical. So we started to see this explosion of creativity. And because we had already spent 6 years pushing towards this media first environment, it actually created the perfect space for media to become the entire focus. Add into that TikTok's honestly kind of revolutionary algorithm, especially back in 2020, where it no longer mattered who followed you. It was no longer about having friends that you chose to connect with. It was now almost exclusively about the video that you made or the piece of media that you made. If you made a good video, and by good, obviously it's an objective measure here, but we're talking about what the algorithm deems to be good, what is likely to get views. If you made a good piece of media, you could get it in front of almost anybody in the world. And because of that shift, we saw two big things happen. Number one was we started to see that individuals not only became influencers, but became mega influencers, became celebrities. Some of the biggest entertainers in the world came from this era. The other thing that we started to see was brands really start paying attention to what they produced on social media. Because during that 2014, 2020 era, where we were still sort of in the middle, brands were involved, they were spending, but most still weren't using it as an active medium for themselves and producing for it. Starting in 2020, once the floodgates kind of opened with the ability for anyone to reach anybody, we started to see brands really focus on creating a TikTok account, creating an Instagram account, making sure they're producing on YouTube. The demand for content exploded over the last 5 years. Now, one thing I want to point out here is, as we've seen on this timeline from 2008 to 2014, 2014 to 2020, all of these changes happen in roughly 6-year cycles. And what that means is we are approaching the end, or the potential end, of the current cycle. So this current space of it just being media is actually potentially evolving again. And I don't believe that it is a coincidence that when you look at the rise of AI happening right alongside the end of this sort of media era, when you look at, more importantly, the rise of AI agents, you start to see what the next landscape for social, well, social's not even in the name anymore, but what the next landscape starts to look like. And I'm calling that curated media. Now, I believe this will really start to take off in 2026 as more and more brands engage with AI tools for their marketing, AI tools for content generation, AI tools for the planning and data side of things. And what we're going to start seeing, how this sort of next era will be defined, is by hyper personalization. So just-in-time content, which just to add a definition to that, means you as a viewer are seeing the exact thing that you're looking for at the exact moment that you're looking for. We've already seen some of this start to happen via Facebook ads and the different pixels and tracking and so on and so forth, where they're able to get a contextual ad in front of you right when you were just talking about it to a friend. That's going to ramp up pretty dramatically, and we're going to see more of that on the organic side as well. The next big thing is whole person marketing will have a massive increase, because what we're starting to see is, if there is more content available, if there is better strategy available, better data available, and if we start to have the ability to understand a person outside of just who they are as a consumer, but who they are in their personal lives, what they care about, what their hobbies look like. If we can start to crunch that data, which AI gives us the ability to do quickly and understand quickly and extract information from quickly, then we as brand owners get to start speaking to that person in an environment that they're not necessarily used to. So this is the thesis behind, for example, the creative studio I run, Kojo. Our job is to help brands speak to their existing consumer in the environment of gaming, anime, and different fandoms. And that has worked incredibly well, because just to throw a quick stat out there, 3.3 billion people on the planet identify as gamers. And that tells me that your customer is probably a gamer in their spare time, whether on mobile or otherwise. And so by being able to speak to them on that side of their personality, rather than just the direct sales relationship, not only do you find this blue ocean space that your competitors aren't yet speaking to, you also start to connect with them more deeply. And the third big trend that's going to be a part of this curated era is quantity plus quality. So this debate has been raging for a long time. Do we make more videos, or do we make better videos? And the truth is, both can work. I've seen channels that publish 25 videos every single day, and they are slop videos. They are terrible. People watch them and they blow up. I've also seen channels that post once every 3 months, and they are incredibly high quality, potentially could be placed in a movie theater, and it works and they blow up. What we're going to start seeing in an era where AI dominates is both the quality of your video has to rise to a certain level, and the quantity has to rise to a certain level. And that's going to be driven largely by the fact that consumers are going to get used to more content, which means their standards are going to go up. Now, what this means for us as brand owners, as marketers, as people who are looking for how we can take advantage of this change, is what I call U to the power of AI. So the unfortunate truth is that with these things happening under the hood, we're not going to be able to keep up with the demand to the extent that is necessary to really carve a space. And so what we're going to start seeing is that every single marketer will need to extend their capabilities with a suite of tailored AI agents. Now, what that means in practice is you as a social media marketer will have an AI tool that specializes in reading your data and finding content ideas. You will have an AI tool that specializes in finding influencers to work with. You'll have an AI tool that specializes in posting that content at the right time on the right platforms. And go down the list, there will be an AI tool that you need to have in order to really drive the type of performance that you are looking for. We're also going to see in this era the rise, and we're already starting to see it, of AI generated content. So picture taking an influencer and just going from start to finish, fully generated, fully fake, fully done by AI. Actually, right before this this talk was going through Instagram and started seeing the conversation around an AI actress that I think her name is Tilly, that they are putting out into the world and getting signed by agencies. And this is where things are going. Now, the one thing I want to caution you against in that new world is we also need to remember that the consumer matters. So if our goal is to connect with our consumer and make something they actually want to see, then I believe going with the fully generated approach, let's just put out a bunch of stuff and it comes cheap. You know, we can generate an influencer for 10 cents. I think that's the wrong approach, because ultimately, as we can see with this new curated media space, it's about connecting with the individual. And the benefit of AI is it allows us to connect with that individual across more different areas of their life, across a wider surface area, and in deeper ways. However, if you choose to go the fully generated route, you're actually limiting that connection.